Hey, well, thanks for joining everybody. And it's only Wednesday. It's already been a hell of a legal week. And there's no better person to talk about some of the things that are going on in this country right now in that space than our friend Preet Bharara. He is a former prosecutor, knows this work, knows this business, understands what the legal ramifications of the insanity that we are facing in this country right now are. So, Preet, I wanted to start out with the unusual nature of one of our newest members of the federal judiciary, Emil Bove, a man who is 44 years old but looks 80, I think, from the weight of evil. But talk to us about how different this is to have somebody going onto the bench who is this unqualified, both legally and temperamentally.
Okay, well, you're starting right in with the hard stuff. I thought we were going to chit chat about the weather first.
It's hot.
It's very hot. It's very hot in New York. I'm actually wearing a T-shirt under my my blazer, which is not the look that at my age and in my station that I usually sport.
You know, you're rocking.
It's like
You're
97.
rocking.
It's not. I put on the blazer for you. I put on the blazer for you, even though I'm in my little office. So Emil Bove, I know very well. I hired him at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District.
Okay.
On the strength of a very powerful application set of recommenders. He's a very smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very smart lawyer. So I don't know if it's the case that he's not qualified legally.
All right.
There are plenty of people on the appellate courts who have been appointed younger and are not as skilled in the courtroom. In fact, lots of people have said, who are no friends of Mr. Bove and what he has done and some of the things he's been accused of, have said that in the courtroom, in some of those Trump proceedings, he was the star of the courtroom. So he knows his way around a courtroom. He knows his way around criminal law. The other stuff is more, look, I don't have to give my own personal opinion. I can tell you that there are many members of the Senate who I respect and who I think have good judgment, who called into question some of the conduct by Emil Bove. There was the whole business about how he dealt with the public integrity unit in the Justice Department relating to a particular politician who was charged. There are 3 whistleblowers who came forward and talked about his representations to the committee about whether he ever encouraged folks to say, F the courts. So there are a lot of questions here. And I think, look, I served in the Judiciary Committee as a staffer, as chief counsel to Senator Schumer for 5 years. And so I'm a veteran of some of these confirmation battles. And ordinarily, a candidate like this would have failed. Even a candidate of the president's own party, even if the president's party had a slight majority in the Senate. I saw that happen on a number of occasions. Here, and you are as well versed in this dynamic as anyone in the country, you have senators who did not want to die on this hill.
Yep. Who
I think probably had grave concerns about temperament, as you mentioned, and probably would have wanted more inquiry and more investigation. But this is like, remember the NRA in the old days? Maybe they still do this if they're around. They would say to members, this vote we're going to count.
Yes.
Right. And this vote is going to go in your score.
We're scoring
this vote. Well, Trump has a version of that. And he told people on the vote for this particular Third Circuit judge, not others, and others, he's had some failures. We're scoring this vote. And people got the message. And, Susan Collins, clearly, I think she voted against, right?
She did. She and Murkowski both voted against.
Clearly knowing that it wouldn't make the difference, very courageously voted no. And he's on the bench. Now, the more interesting question is not whether he's legally qualified or too young to be on the Third Circuit, as a matter of strict qualification and intellect, but what's going to happen next. And lots of credible sources reporting that he's next in line for a vacancy on the Supreme Court of the United States. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, the article in the Atlantic and some other DC chatter has been that the reason this was so important to Trump and the White House was that is the plan is if Alito or Thomas goes, he follows.
So can I make a point about that?
Sure.
And maybe people will say I'm like full of stuff. So whatever you think of Emil Bove, I am not aware of first of all, when I hired people in the U.S. Attorney's Office, I didn't know if they were Democrats or Republicans, conservatives or liberals. We didn't hire on that basis.
Sure.
I am now learning when people have later lives what their political affiliations are and were, and what their partisan relationships are and were. But I don't know that there's anything about him that suggests he's some kind of Federalist Society, extreme right-wing ideologue. His claim to
No.
fame and his access to this position is loyalty to the President of the United States, who he represented in a personal capacity in his criminal defense cases. So if he gets on the Supreme Court, and we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but why not? It's hot. It's a hot day in New York,
It's a
right?
hot day.
It's a hot day, hot damn. And so maybe on some occasions when another immunity case or some other privilege case comes before the Supreme Court, is he a reliable vote for Donald Trump's interests? Yeah, probably, but Donald Trump is going to be gone, and Emil Bove will be 47,
Right.
and I don't know that he's a reliable vote on abortion and on all sorts of rights issues. He may not be, and he could turn out to be somebody ultimately that the conservatives don't like because we don't know what his jurisprudence is. At least I don't.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Preet. And I think that there's a degree to which that rupture between Trump and the Federalist Society and Leonard Leo and all those guys,
Yeah, this is like
it
an
has
FU to them.
disrupted that feeder system that Leonard Leo built up for I don't know, almost 25 years, maybe longer actually, of
Yeah.
those young conservative judges who were groomed and mentored by other young conservative judges and lawyers. So I think you're right. We don't know what Bove's going to do beyond stuff I think directly related to Trump. And you never know. Once he's on the bench for life, he could be, things could change. Let's hope so.
He's a New
Um,
Yorker. I don't know. We don't have. I think the jury is out. Somebody made the comparison to a nominee. Again, getting way ahead of ourselves, but just a blast from the past. When I was on the Judiciary Committee, as I mentioned, as a staffer, people may have forgotten there was a nomination of John Roberts. He got confirmed,
mhm.
and then later the nomination of Samuel Alito. He got confirmed. In between, there was a nominee,
Harriet Myers.
Harriet Myers. I'll take failed Supreme Court nominations for 1,000, and I think he won. Harriet Myers, loyal, like in fact, quite parallel in some ways. Her access
Yes.
to that position, the nomination, was she was the very loyal and
White House counsel.
dedicated
Yeah.
White House counsel with a very close relationship to then President Bush. Conservative sort of enough for him.
Right.
And conservatives, the Leonard Leos of the world, lost their minds because she didn't have a track record on abortion. People thought she might be wishy-washy and too liberal for the court. Certainly more liberal than Roberts. Certainly more liberal than Alito, who eventually replaced her as the nominee.
Yeah.
You could have that with this guy too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to change tracks a little bit and talk about the continued and extraordinary way in which the Justice Department is being deployed in the Maxwell and Epstein issue. Um, Talk to me about how extraordinary it is for the Deputy Attorney General of the United States to get on a plane and fly to visit a prisoner in a case that is long since resolved. I mean, it's under appeal, but she was found guilty. Um, and to spend 2 days in some sort of uh, secretive discussions and negotiations with her. I think people have yet to catch on, like, how off the beaten path this is
Yeah.
for DOJ.
So it's way off the beaten path to have someone who's the number two in the department personally interview a witness. People might say, well, why don't you have the prosecutor who knows the most about the case and is steeped in the facts and was in fact the lead prosecutor of Ghislaine Maxwell. Oh, right. She was fired. Lots of people
Uh-huh.
speculate because her last name is Comey, Maureen Comey.
Right.
Usually you would have somebody who's steeped in the facts and had less on their plate than the deputy attorney general.
You would
Um,
think.
but I think sort of less important than which personnel was sent to this interview is the fact that the interview is happening at all. It raises a lot of questions.
Right.
The suggestion is, look, and one of the reasons it raises a lot of questions is I have a document. People call it receipts. I have a receipt here. On July 7th, the thing that brought all this fury and fervor and furor and any other F word that you want to use to this controversy is that the MAGA base for a very, very long time was told by people who were civilians and then came into government, including Kash Patel and Dan Bongino,
Right.
we're going to blow the lid, off this thing. All this material related to Jeffrey Epstein, we're going to make public. And then they put out this document that says, among other things, we found no basis to revisit the disclosure of materials and will not permit the release of, they say child pornography, but they mean all the materials. There is no incriminating client list, and we did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. Also, perpetuating unfounded theories about Epstein doesn't serve the ends of combating child exploitation and bringing justice to victims, and no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. So why are we going to interview Ghislaine now? It's
Mhm.
also unusual and bizarre because Ghislaine Maxwell, like every other defendant who's ever come through, or target for that matter, who's come through the doors at the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, has absolutely the opportunity to provide information, including the names of clients and other kinds of things. But some conditions have to be met if you want to have a working system that's credible
Right.
and that serves the interests of justice. You have to be credible, right? People should be reminded that Ms. Maxwell has separately been charged with 2 counts of perjury in making false statements about these very matters relating to
Right.
Jeffrey Epstein. You have to accept You can't provide information reliably about other people unless you've come clean about yourself. That makes common sense. Even a layperson can understand that. She's not accepted responsibility for heinous actions that were proved beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury of her peers in New York, for which she got the maximum sentence, 20 years. So, not credible, no acceptance of responsibility. And then it's not clear what information she actually has and that can be corroborated. So you have somebody with all these flaws who's been convicted, who is an associate of and a co-conspirator of somebody that the administration itself describes as the greatest pedophile of all time, um, who is incentivized by the dangling of a pardon
Hmm.
to give particular information that would exonerate Trump and implicate his enemies by somebody who's way, for whom this is way above below their pay grade, in a non-transparent way, unclear if there were other witnesses or FBI agents taking notes. That's what you have. That combination of things is crazy, unusual, and unprecedented.
It just strikes me and it also is increasingly striking me that Blanche seems to be running the department more than Bondi is in some ways. I mean, he clearly has a higher degree
Well,
of confidence with the president than the
Bondi,
ostensible attorney
the
general.
attorney general, is looking for that. I'm sitting here at my desk and I'm looking. I would know if there was a client list on my desk or not. In
Yeah,
fact,
you would.
I have I have a client list, not that kind of client list, because I have I have actual clients. Um, so I don't know what the dynamic is there. Obviously, they're both close to the president. Um, you know, uh, Todd has more of a connection to the Southern District of New York. That's where he served, and I served with him. So maybe that makes sense. Maybe he's closer to the actual practice of law. I'd like to know who was there in the meeting with him, and I think they should disclose and make public who else was there and what they're doing here. But
Yeah.
the whole gambit is very odd, and I'm suspicious of it.
I'm curious about. I mean, I think the political implications of pardoning her are well beyond what the White House understands with their own base. I think they.
So can you answer your own question? Because I
Yeah.
don't know what. Can you explain to me politically
Yeah.
how you survive the pardon of the co-conspirator of the greatest
You
pedophile
you
ever?
you don't. You don't.
What?
It
So,
it there's already about, 3 in 10 voters who voted for Trump think was involved with Epstein in some way. New poll out
yeah,
today about that. And as we talked about, as you mentioned, for a decade, the Republican Party had this identity in their head that there was a huge global conspiracy of Democratic pedophiles, pizza restaurants. You know the whole story,
yeah.
folks. And that idea is so powerful for them and so obsessive for them that that Maxwell was part of that demonology of this pedophile theory. And and letting her either commuting her sentence or pardoning her completely, it doesn't matter. Either way, I think he's already kind of poisoned the well with his own base over this issue because
Yeah.
it does strike people, myself included, as inexplicable. And he's the guy who said when she was sentenced in 2020, "I wish her
I
well."
wish her well.
And then he said,
Has he ever wished you well?
"No, not that I am aware, and I think I'd probably know if he had." Um, but but he did actually wish for Bill Barr to investigate me one time, which even Bill Barr said no, which I was kind of gratified by. I guess I owe him a favor, but but the idea of pardoning her, I don't think he understands that he's out of credit with his own people on this issue.
But so
He
okay,
doesn't
so
have the latitude.
can I ask you a follow-up? So he's many things, and I think he continues to be underestimated, politically and
Sure.
otherwise.
Mhm.
But the one thing that he has been very good at is understanding really, really rigorously and precisely what his base wants to hear,
Yes.
what the limitations of his influence over them might be, and there's almost no limit. He's right about the Fifth Avenue shooting.
Sure.
He's right about he got convicted on 34 counts in Manhattan.
They don't care.
Has he lost touch with that, or is this
I
issue something that's like screwed his brain up? How do you
I think
engage in
there's
this kind of
something
a mess up?
I think the problem for Donald right now, and you're absolutely correct, he has a very feral sense of a cunning, like, connection to the base. I think that some of the stuff with Epstein is now so long ago for him
Yeah.
that he doesn't remember what's in the files. He doesn't remember what could be there. He doesn't remember or know what is known about his relationship with Epstein.
So he's more scared of what's in the files than he is of his base.
That's my theory of the case right now, Preet, is that he has something in his brain that's that's making him behave in this way that is way off kilter for his normal behavior set. It's way off axis for how he normally is able to read and manipulate the people that follow him.
Right.
So, I
And look, and that stuff, but as you know, Rick, that stuff was planted by Obama
oh yeah, he actually snuck
to be
back in
to
the
be
White House and
used to be used 3 elections later when Trump is back in office.
obvi, as the kids say.
Um, are
Um,
there? Can I ask you another question about
yeah,
the MAGA base? What does it tell you that this is the thing of all the things? This is the thing that has caused an actual real. We'll see if it's abiding or not, but a real and substantial rift between the MAGA base and their
yeah.
president.
Look, I think it goes back to that idea that a lot of these folks believe that they were saving the children, and they believe this theory because it was so. Look, people believe in conspiracy theories because it gives them a cohesive vision of the world when they don't have a cohesive vision of the world. It must be because of the UFOs or the Illuminati or the child predators or whatever that whatever theory of the day engages them. Now, this theory was particularly appealing to them because it was packaged well. It let them fill in the blanks of turning people they opposed politically into people who were demonic or truly
Yeah.
evil. And I don't think anybody expected it to take off like it did, but there were people on the right, Jack Posobiec, Mike Cernovich, Gateway Pundit, all these big influencers on the right who made this into an indictment of Hillary Clinton, and an indictment of the Democratic Party, an indictment of the left, an indictment of the press, indictment of George
Yeah.
Soros, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's just, I think it's just it
But
was
what's
such a
crazy about but okay, but I'm sorry. I see the comments. People are being very funny about about my naivete and incredulousness. So I appreciate that, folks. But if you're going to pick a thing, by the way, which has it's not based on 100% lie. They're actually at the center of all this. There is a pedophile
yeah.
um,
Jeffrey Epstein
who
is a
is charged,
pedophile.
and there was an aider and abetter of that pedophile,
Yes. Yep.
Ghislaine Maxwell. So it's not like the pizza thing where I think it's based on nothing at all.
Right.
But the other thing that's connected to this this article of faith for them is that Donald Trump is not unknown to that guy. It's like you
Yeah.
decide to blow up the pizza conspiracy, and Donald Trump also has a pizza shop with a basement that no one's been in. Did they not
Right.
see that this was lightning for him too?
I think they really believed in their heart of hearts that Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were fellow rich guys who might have known each other. Maybe there are a couple dozen, 100 pictures, I don't know, of them together, but they couldn't possibly be connected because Donald Trump was saving the children. And it really, I
Right.
mean, the
Was
cognitive
he,
dissonance they were able to
and was there
process.
evidence? Was there evidence his behavior backstage at a teen beauty pageant?
Yeah, and that, and
Was he
saying he wanted to have
was he
sex with
saving
his
them?
daughter,
Yeah.
look, Trump, it was no secret to anybody who was in New York, or in Palm Beach. And I heard more rumors about him in Palm Beach, where he used to spend an incredible amount of time, even than it did in New York when I worked for Giuliani, that he was a degenerate. He was always chasing girls. He was always after, young, hot girls in Palm Beach. New York and Palm Beach both have them in abundance. Um, but I mean, the Epstein stuff was always like a time bomb for this guy. And I still can't understand what part of him said, no, this is going to be fine. Because it like most conspiracies, they eventually out, and most cover-ups, like the one they're engaging in right now, which I think is pretty clumsy, they always out. I mean, conspiracies generally break, cover-ups always do.
Can of the thousands of people who have tuned in, how many do you think are MAGA followers? Probably
And
not a lot.
probably a few
But then maybe you know
percentages.
some. Here's
Yeah,
the question to pose to the MAGA base that wants transparency. And if you listen to my podcast, I've been focused on this point. The Trump administration, after saying we're not going to make any other disclosures, is asking for extraordinary relief by requesting grand jury material, which is really, really hard to get,
right.
from district court judges to authorize their release. One judge has already said no, properly, legitimately, lawfully.
Yes.
There's a gigantic amount of material, including materials collected in connection with searches, other interviews not done in the grand jury, huge amount of voluminous material that the Department of Justice did not present to the grand jury, did not come through the mechanism of the grand jury, in which they could release tomorrow. They're good and prudential and norms
It was
reasons not
actually
to do
my
it.
next question for you was about
They
grand
can
jury.
totally,
Yeah.
they can totally do that. How are they explaining how is anybody in the MAGA base asking, like, why aren't you disclosing that stuff when you can, and making a big show of asking for more sensitive stuff to be disclosed and getting stymied by the courts? I mean, how dumb does I mean, I don't know that.
They think they're very dumb. The White House thinks these folks are very dumb, and they're really working to suppress these influencers who are, the Joe Rogans of the world. Um,
Have they
you know,
lost him? They've kind of lost him, right?
they've kind of lost Joe Rogan. Laura Loomer is in a weird spot because while she is very close to the president, she's also been extremely critical of the White House's handling of all the Epstein related materials. Um, but they've been trying to sort of get the influencer types to shut up. It hasn't worked. But as you pointed out, there's a ton of this material the 1,000 FBI agents who went in there to look through the material to
Yeah.
flag Trump's name, which again, I think I'd love for you to speak to that before we wrap up. That's also absolutely extraordinary. I don't think 1,000 agents have been deployed to anything since 9/11.
Yeah, I mean, maybe January 6th, but maybe
Hmm.
not that many. I don't, but what's also weird about that I haven't heard people talk about, but I may have missed it. Um, you now have 1,000, if it's true, you now have 1,000 people who are ordinary human beings and won't forever be with the FBI. And in any group of 1,000 people, there's going to be folks with loose lips
Oh, yes.
who are like, ordinarily, given the sensitivity of this, for a million reasons, good faith reasons, bad faith reasons, political reasons, prudential reasons, victim reasons, you want to keep this stuff close hold. You don't open it up to
Yeah.
1,000 agents. So I don't know what's going on there. So I'm not smart enough to figure out. I'm not smart enough to understand how dumb some other people are. Does that make sense?
You can't, you know what? You can't underscore. I mean, I think there is a conspiracy and a cover up here. I think there's also panic and impulsivity and stupidity here on the part of the White House. I think I had heard weeks ago that Susie Wiles was told, tell Pam Bondi, wrap this thing up,
Yeah.
clean this up. Shortly after we start getting, we start getting that statement, like there's no evidence there, there's no there, nothing to see here, move along. And nothing's gone right for them since. They've been in a panic since that moment. And if we had a functioning legislature in Washington, there would be investigations of this because it is a clumsy and sort of messed up cover up. But it all to my mind is a part and parcel to a corrupted Department of Justice at this point.
Yeah, no, you make very good points. As we're past our 20 minutes.
We are,
I
yep.
want, I 60 seconds to answer this question.
Yeah, go.
What should Democrats be doing politically? Because I'm not the political guy. Should they be like performatively seeking the documents released because it's bad for the president? Should they sit tight? Should
Yeah,
do the
look,
right thing?
they can walk and chew gum. They can work the economy stuff. They can work the Epstein stuff. They can work the redistricting stuff all simultaneously, and they should use their power in Congress to the greatest degree of their ability to do so, because Donald Trump will resist, and it will continue to make the story worse for him. It will continue to make it more messed up for him as he goes. So, all right, my friend. Well, listen, I've run out the clock. I appreciate you as always.
Thank you, the Rick Wilson. Thank you so much.
All right, folks. We'll see you again next time. Thanks, Preet. Thanks,
for
folks.
joining. Get back to work.
Yeah, it never stops.